Hello, in this video I'm going to be taking a photo and converting it into this simple art style where we're using block colours to create our landscape. If that interests you, stay tuned. So to get started, the first thing I want to do is just orientate my page. We're going to be using a photo that's in landscape. So if we come up to the top here, we can come to document properties. One of our options is orientation. So we can change that to landscape and we can come out of that. So at the top here, we've got a few options for positioning the page. We can click on this one, which centers the page. The shortcut for it is 5. So next thing I want to do is import the image that we're going to be using. So this is one I've just downloaded from Pixabay. So I'm going to come up to File, down to Import, and I've put it in a file on its own. So I can just double click on this. OK to the settings, and we have our image. So I'm just going to scale this so it fits better onto our page. So I'm going to hold down Control to constrain the proportions so we don't put it out of shape. And I'm also going to hold down Shift, which scales around the center. So as I pull this side in, it'll come in equal distance on both sides. Out there, I think. So we're going to build this piece of art up in sections. So what I'm going to do is trace around the different elements. I'm going to start at the front and work my way back. This is because I don't want to cover up things that I've still got to trace. So to get started, I'm going to come over, get the Bezier pen tool. So I'm going to start over on the left-hand side. Just going to click, and then I'm just going to be clicking and dragging to get smooth curves. I think at this point, I'm just going to do a sharp corner. So I just click and release, then a little drag there to get a smooth bend, and then just work our way around the coast. So currently green, we can change that to blue. We can come back and change all these colours later. So that'll do for the sea. Next one I want to do is the beach. So again, we can start wherever. So I'll start up here somewhere again. So I'm just going to drag over here a little bit just to get a smooth curve there so we get a little bit of beach at the back. We can adjust anything that doesn't look quite right later on. I just want to get in the main shapes at the moment. So I'm going to come beyond the page for each of these, so that when we trim it all down, all the edges will be cut off. That was our beach, so we can give it a yellow colour. We want to drop it back down. So if we go to our selection tool, if we come to the top here, we've got options for adjusting where in the stack it comes. So each item we add to our page is stacked up on top of each other. So currently our beach is on top. If we drop it down one, it'll go behind the sea. If we drop it down again, it'll go behind the photo. So we raise it up. So now we've got our sea at the front and the beach behind. There are shortcuts for this, so we don't have to keep coming to our selection tool and go into the top. So if we want to drop it to the very bottom of the stack, we can press End. If we want to go down one layer, we can use Page Down. We kind of want to be able to drop it to the back of our image. Unfortunately, if we do that at the moment, so if we click either this one or if we click End, which will do the same thing, it drops it behind our photo. So if we come up to this button at the top here, this is our Layers and Objects dialog box. So we click on this one and we get this hierarchical representation of our project. So at the moment, we've got everything on one layer. But if we add a layer, I'm going to move this layer above layer 2. So layer 2, if we double click on this, we can just change this to photo. Click off over here. And then if we click on the triangle, we can see what's in layer 1. So the image is the photo. So all I'm going to do is get hold of this and I'm going to drag it and drop it on top of layer 2, or on top of our photo layer now. Now our image is in a layer below layer 1. We can actually lock it so we don't move it. Now because it's on a different layer, if we come back to our beach, we'll raise it to the top, and this time we're just going to click on the lower to bottom. Now it lowers it to the bottom of everything in that layer, so it no longer goes behind the photo. So now we can just build up layers, and every time we've finished adjusting our layer, we can drop it to the back by clicking on the End, and that'll drop it to the bottom of our artwork, but won't put it behind the photo. So the next one I want to do is the trees. I think to start with, I'm just going to do a rough shape for the trees. With the Bezier tool, we can go around, do the same thing. I'm not going to be too fussy here, as long as I'm within the trees. So I want to use kind of basic shapes to create these trees to give that simplistic artwork style that we're looking for. So to do that, I'm going to use the ellipse tool, and I'm just going to drag out ellipses. To make this a little bit clearer, because I can't see what I'm doing like this, I'm just going to change the colour of this. We can make that dark green. And we can just go along the top here and we can just put in ellipses to make the tree shapes as we go round. So the thing we're going to do is we're going to use our original ellipse, click on our left mouse button, and we can drag it around. Then without releasing the mouse button, if we put it where we want it and press space, it would stamp copy. So we can go round and we can stamp copies of our shape. Then if we release our mouse button, we can adjust the shape of our ellipse, and then we can go round different shaped trees. So this way we can kind of vary how our trees look. And it's a nice simple process of dragging it around, pressing the space bar where we want it to be. So that's created a nice edge. Of course, all these are individual shapes at the moment. So if we look over to our Layers and Objects dialog box now, we've got a lot of ellipses down this side. So what we want to do is just scroll down till we find the end of our ellipses. And path 3, I'm guessing, is the green trees. So green trees, so that's our base. So we want to add all of these together just to make a single path. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to scroll back to the top. I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to click on the top path. And what that does is select all of the paths in between. So now they're all selected. So we've got all of these ellipses selected and we've got our green background selected. We can come up to Path and down to Union to join them all together to form one path. So again, now we've done this, we want to drop it to the back of our artwork. So we're going to press the End button on our keyboard. So if you notice, all these buildings are different colours, different shapes. So we want it to be quite simple. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool this time, and we just do a similar process to the trees. We just move it around, change the shape, stamp out lots of buildings, and then I'm going to show you a trick to vary the colour. So to get started, we need the rectangle tool. We need to drag out a rectangle that we can start using. I'm going to change the colour of it because it's supposed to be a building. Let's go for a lighter grey. It's a nicer one. I'm going to get the selection tool, and then we can move our rectangle around and we can use our spacebar to stamp out some shapes. So we go there. So when we're working on our artwork, sometimes we can actually grab the wrong thing and kind of destroy our artwork. So if we press Ctrl Z just to put the C back where it was, I want this not to be moved. If I'm trying to grab hold of a building and move it around, I don't want to be upsetting the things that I've got right so far. So if we come over, we're going to select the C, and if we come and look at our Objects and Layers dialog box, you can see that Path 1 is selected up here. So if we double click on it, we can change that to C, press Enter. Path 2 is the beach, so we can call that beach. Path 3 is the trees, so I'm going to call that one, double click on it and call it trees. So now we've named these, we want these to stay where they are. So what I'm going to do is just come over to the side here. We've got a little padlock. When it's unlocked, we can move it. When it's locked, we can't. So if we just lock those in position, we can no longer grab them and move them. So now they're safe. So we can move things around. We can accidentally miss, but we can't move our artwork. And we've already locked the photo, so we can't move the photo. So now we can just concentrate on our buildings. So now we have a rather large selection of buildings that we've put in. Now, our buildings in the photo are varying in colour, so we've got various colours. The way we've done it, we've just used a single colour. So at the moment, you can't see the difference between the buildings. So we need to add a bit of variation to the colour. So the way we're going to do that is first, we're going to select all of our buildings. So thankfully they're all rectangles, so we can click on the top one. We can scroll down to the bottom of our rectangles down here, hold down Shift and select the bottom one to select all of the rectangles in between. So now we've got all of our rectangles selected. We're then going to come down to this little wave button down here, which is our tweak tool. So if we click on this, we get a lot of different options that we can use. So these ones will move paths around. We have some in the middle that will actually distort the paths and change the shape of the paths. And then this one along here allows us to jitter the colour. So if we select this one, we can vary the colour of our buildings. But we've also got channels. So we've got hue, so we can change the color. We've got saturation, lightness, and opacity. We don't want our buildings to become see-through. So I'm going to turn off opacity. We'll leave hue, I think. It might add a little bit of interest to our image. So we've got hue, saturation, and lightness still enabled. So what we're going to do is just brush over these, hold down the button and brush over these to add a bit of variation to the colors. And that seems to work quite well. Let's add a bit more there. They're coming out quite pinky and reddy, but I think that'll work quite well because what we can do is we can give it a bit of a sunset when we're done, I think, and that'll work quite well with the color of the buildings. So if we go back to our selection tool, while they're all selected, we can't use union because that'll make them all one path and turn them all one color. So what we're going to do is just group them together. So if we come up to the top here, we can click on group, and that groups them all together. So now if we want to move them around or work on them, they move around together. I press Ctrl Z to undo that move. If we did want to get into the group and work on individual buildings, one way we can get into the group is to double click. Now we're inside the group, we can select individual items. If we want to come out, we can double click outside of everything. And now when we click on it again, it's back to being a group. So we now need to drop our buildings down to the bottom of the stack, so we can press end and that drops them behind everything we've done so far. One thing you might find is you might find things in the wrong order. So you might have to adjust how these are set. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. So I'm going to hold down Control, use my mouse wheel to zoom in. We've also got a few holes and things that are visible throughout. So depending on how you want to do it, you can go through. We double click into our group, so we're now inside the group. We can select the individual buildings and we can change the shapes. We should be able to adjust where they are in the stack. So if we come up to the top, we can drop that back. Is there anything that looks completely wrong? Let's have a look down here. So for example, this one we might want to put behind this tall building, or we could put it in front actually. Let's put it in front of these ones. So I'm going to bring it to the top, forwards. So by clicking on the raise in the stack, we can bring it forwards till it's in front of these buildings. So now it's in front. Is there anything else that stands out as being wrong? Oh, this one I would like behind. So I can drop that down till it's behind the larger building at the front. And I think we need to sort out these gaps. So we've got gaps in this image. So I'm going to select, if I can get hold of it, one behind. And I'm just going to drag on this handle just to fill in the gaps. We can do the same with this one. Drag on the bottom handle to fill the gap. And we've got a gap here. So what I might do is just select this one and I hold on to it. I'm going to press space and then I'm just going to drag it down. And well, actually I'll press space, but we could just leave it there, couldn't we? And I don't think that looks too bad. Actually, I might bring one over here and we just put some interest at the front here. So I'll put one there, one here. So while I've got this one selected, we need to raise it to the top. So we can bring it up till it's in front of the buildings. I think there was another one somewhere that I did that with, but can't see it anymore. So now it's all looking good. We can double click outside to get back out of our group. And if we hold down Control and zoom back out, hopefully it should all look pretty uniform now. Yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. The next thing we need to do is add some of these mountains. So we can just work our way through these mountains, working back in the layers, and we'd just build up our mountain ranges behind. And then we'll perhaps add a little bit of interest to the sea and to the sky, perhaps do a sunset in the sky. So I'm going to go back to my Bezier pen tool and I'm going to just start adding in some of these mountains. So every time I click, I'm clicking and dragging to create this smoother path. So that's one. What we can do is we can lose the colour. So if we click here and lose the colour, we've still got it there, but it's got no colour. If we go to our, we haven't got it there. So if we come up to the top, this brush icon at the top here will give us our fill and stroke dialog box. Now this is where we can change the colour of objects. So at the moment we've got no paint. So we could make it a solid colour. If we change the alpha channel down to 0, this is the opacity of the colour. By changing it to 0, we can see the mountain behind. So we can then use the little dropper tool here. If we click on this, we can now change the colour to the mountain behind, so we can sample the colour of the mountain. So if we go for that, and it will paint in that colour to the mountain. We can then press our end button and drop it down behind everything else. So for this one, just temporarily, I'm going to add a stroke so we can see what we're doing. We can give it a black stroke. So I'm going to come down to the bottom. I'm going to hold down Shift, hit the black. Because we're colouring it the same colour as the background mountains, it's quite difficult to see what we're doing. So by adding a stroke to it temporarily, we can see what's what. We can see what we've drawn and what we haven't. So what we're going to do is work back through the mountains now, making individual paths. So now we've got all of our mountains grouped together. One thing I've forgotten to do is get rid of the strokes. So because we just want to get rid of the stroke, if we select the whole of the mountain group, so it's currently selected because it's coloured. So all we're going to do now is come down to the bottom and I'm going to click on the scroll wheel on the X, and that will remove the stroke from all of our mountains. So some of these mountains look a little bit funny, so we can come in and adjust some of these. We've got a bit of a funny overhang up here, and some of these are slightly odd shaped. So to do that again, if we double click to enter the group, so we're in it now, so we should be able to select a mountain. And if we use our nodes tool, we can just sit there and adjust some of these things so it looks a little bit better. So if there's anything else that stands out like a sore thumb that's just not right, I don't think the rest are too bad. So now we've got the majority of our image constructed. I'm going to give it a sunset. So the way I'm going to do this is just with block colours. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool and I'm just going to draw in some blocks. Right, so another little trick that we can use, if we want to select multiple objects, we can either drag a box over all of them, which will select everything behind as well, but I'm just going to go down the side here. So what I'm going to do is just hold down Alt on the keyboard, and then when we click and drag, we draw this red line. So everything this red line goes through will be selected when we release. Again, we can group these together, and we want to drop these right to the back, so we can press our End button on the keyboard and drop them behind. Right, so my sunset is a little bit too low. I've kind of overshot. So I think I'm happy with that. So I'll double click off. So now everything's back to being a single group. The next thing I want to do is just adjust this C. We want a little bit more colour and interest in the C. Our C is currently locked. So if we unlock our C, we should now be able to select it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control D to duplicate it. I'm going to change the colour slightly and I can drag this off. So now this is just like personal preference. I want to create the kind of impression that we've got waves washing up on the beach. So it's going to be lighter on this section and darker on this section. So the top section, I'm actually going to change back. We can just use the deep colour down here. And if I go back and select the one behind, I want this to be lighter, as if it's wash on the beach, somewhere around there. So again, I'm going to take the top one, I'm going to press Control D and move it back. Can't see it. So if we click up here, we can make it a little bit darker. So now as I move back into the sea, I want to change this so we don't keep repeating this little wave shape at the top here. So the way I'm going to get rid of it is to come up to my nodes tool, and now we can just delete one of these. So if we get rid of the, oh, that'll do, delete that one. We've got a cusp node then. If you want to change the style of your node, so a diamond is a cusp node, one way we can do it whilst in the nodes tool is we've got the options at the top here. So we've got cusp node, we've got smooth node, we've got a symmetrical node, which is a smooth node with handles the same size, and we've got an automatically smooth node. So as you move the node around, it automatically adjusts handles to keep it smooth. But if you don't want to keep coming up to the top here and pressing, one way you can do it is to hold down Control, and then you can click on the node and it will cycle through the different node types that we've got. So if we want it to be a smooth node, which is what I want, we can click till we get to the square and then we can just adjust it as we need. So I think that's not bad. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to press, let's go back to our selection tool. I'm going to press Control D again to duplicate. I'm going to move this one down. I want to start rotating these slightly. So if we click onto our, actually I'm just going to change the color so we can see what we're doing. When we have an object selected, if we click a second time, we get our rotation handles and our skew handles, and we get the rotational center. If we don't want to rotate around the center of the object, we can actually get hold of this and move it. So I'm going to want to rotate it around this top corner. So I'm going to move it over there. So as I rotate now, it'll rotate around the rotational center at the top there. I can press Ctrl D to duplicate again. Adjust the color. So I'm quite happy with our image now. Some of the colors could do with a little bit of adjustment. One way we can do this, if we select the nodes tool, then as we move around within our image, as long as the sections aren't locked, we can select different areas and we can adjust them. Currently the beach, the trees and the buildings are locked, so we can't actually get hold of those, but as we move over other sections, you can see the edges get highlighted. So when the edges get highlighted, we can adjust the colors. So we can click on it to select it, and then we can come in and we can adjust the colors. So this all looks good. What I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to group the whole lot. I'll group the whole lot and then we're just going to clip it. So first thing we need to do is go back to our Objects and Layers dialog box. Things that are locked, we just need to unlock while we group them. I think that's all of it. So with the sky selected, I'm going to hold down Shift, go to the sea above. So that's everything in our image selected. We can come up to Group and we've got a single group. We can now take that group and we can clip it. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. I'm going to come over to snapping. So up the top here, we've got this magnet. If we click on this magnet, we can turn on snapping. If we click on this triangle, it gives us our snapping options. If you're not seeing all of these options, you may have it in simple mode, which just gives you bounding boxes, nodes and alignment. So click on the advanced and that gives you all of your different options. So I want to be snapping to the page border. So over here we've got page border, it's enabled, so I should be able to snap to the corner of these. So if we click off, we can come over and you can see it snap to my page corner. So I'm going to click and drag a box right down till it snaps to the bottom corner. So now we have a shape that we're going to use as our clipping mask. I'm going to go back to my selection tool. With that selected, I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to select the group behind. We can then come up to Object, down to Clip and over to Set Clip, and that will clip away all of the stuff that's behind. At the moment we can just see the edge of our photo, so what we can do is if we come over here we can just turn our photo layer off and that will get rid of that. Yeah, I think I'm quite happy with that. If you want to show it a little bit more contrast, we can turn the background black. So if you want to adjust anything to do with your documents, you can come up to Document at the top here, Document Properties, and in here we've got Desk. Now Desk is the area behind, so if we click on Desk we can drag the color to black, click off, and that's our finished image. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching and hopefully see you again.